Gamers, gals, non-binary pals, after a long-awaited hiatus, we are here to talk about the greatest way of farming YouTube views, which is the ban list leak. Why September 21st? Because it's my birthday, and I thought it would be funny if the ban list released on that day. And we're going to talk about what I know will be banned on this day, or released, or brought back. All I'm saying is that someone may have broken into Konami HQ and threatened a security guard with a pipe bomb and gotten an early leaked copy of the ban list. We're going to be taking a look at decks primarily in tier 1 and tier 2 for hits, and obviously stuff that could be brought back. Like, let's be real. Like, we're going to take a look at the relevant shit. And anything that's not relevant, sorry bozos, we're not talking about why True Draco isn't getting Masterpiece back. Like, I'm sorry. That shit just ain't happening. Let's get into the first archetype is Kashtira. We're going to be doing this in an order. We're going to be doing these in archetypal order instead of what I think will be banned, what I think will be whatever. We're going to go the archetypes of stuff for hits, as well as, you know, a little segment at the end for just everything that I don't think is going to make it. Why are all their eyes so white? I think the image I stole is kind of fucked up. Thank you, TCG player. Remember, kids, support your unions. I think that Arise Heart and Shifter are going to get banned. I think the Konami is going to be like, oh, fine. These little shitters want to complain about Shifter stealing games. Fine. Do I want this card to be banned? No, because I play Labyrinth and I kind of need this card in my side deck. So please don't ban this card. And I think Arise Heart is just a really unhealthily designed card. Like the fact that like you could play around Nibiru with this card, the fact that it's like Macrocosmos and the extra deck is just an absurdly powerful card that unfortunately just doesn't really have a good place in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think really limits the sort of archetypes that are allowed to see play. I mean, like, who would have guessed that like fucking Macrocosmos on like the world's biggest legs is not exactly fun to play around. Next, I think Fenrir is gonna go to 2. I don't think it's going to go to 1. I don't think it's going to stay at 3. I think that Konami is going to put Fenrir at 2, the same way they did for Unicorn. And I think Fenrir definitely is going to get hit much sooner rather than later. It's basically playable in almost anything, both as a going first and going second option. It's an incredible removal tool. It's a combo tool that you could play in stuff like Vanquish Soul because it acts as an Earth, and you can like add Rise Heart because it's the fire, and you could just make a fucking rank 7. Dude, this card is so broken. Kashtira is ass without Shifter, so it's fine. Kashtira, I think if you like semi-limited Fenrir and like banned a Rise Heart and Shift, I think that deck would still be good. It wouldn't be like tier 1 as it is like right now, but I think it's still probably like within like the top 3 decks without a doubt. Next up, we have Spright, and this is the first time I'm realizing that Spright Jet has legs. This is really disturbing. So I think that Spright is gonna get blue or Jet to 1. I don't really know what's Konami's philosophy regarding what they think is the bigger problem card, because blue can arguably just grab like any name, but the Spright spell traps are also just like super duper powerful. So I could definitely see them limiting one of these. Again, Spright is not like, you know, the best deck of the format, but it is very easily like the 3rd or 4th best deck. And if the top 2 decks get hit, then well, you gotta do something to Spright. Otherwise, this deck is just gonna be a terrorist. This is the Spright card. You can't convince me otherwise. I think that Runick tip is going to go to 1. I don't think it's going to get banned. I think they still want to sell Tactical Masters, as well as the fact that the new Runick monster was just released in Duelist Nexus. But I think that Runick tip is probably going to get a hit. Ideally, you could like ban Fountain, or you could arguably just ban Hugin. But I think out of like all the Runick cards, like I think Tip is easily the best one, just because it's a fucking searcher. like I don't think I have to explain why this card is good. But B, which is also one of the bigger issues, is that it's a Runick card that you can activate going first with like no pre-existing conditions. Like Slumber, you kind of need a monster on the field, and cards like Golden Droplets are terrible. And Tip is one of the only ones that you can like activate on your own turn to like trigger your Fountain and like get a bunch of shenanigans. I personally think that like fucking Hugin ban or like Fountain ban is way better, but I mean, you know, Konami's not smart. Next up, we have Dragon Link. I couldn't find a good infographic for Dragon Link, so fuck it. You're gonna get a El Exordio Duelist thumbnail that I got off of Google Images. I think that there are gonna be 2 bestial hits. Not 1, but 2. First, Magnemite. I think Magnemite is arguably one of the top 5 cards they printed within the last year. I'm not even joking. It's a hand trap. is a huge body, and it's a searcher for like the most supported archetype within the game. Like the fact that it also just searches a second bestial so that you could use that additional bestial to just like start beating your opponent to death. You can make Wallow, and that Wallow can convert to like a disruption or like a Zeus line. It's disgusting. I hate it. And I think Magnum to 1, you know, sort of puts like a cap on it and makes it so that like it's not as repeatable. You're not always gonna have to contend with like Dragon Link having the most insane follow-up on planet Earth. Secondly, I think Lubellion's also gonna get a hit. Lubellion is an extremely powerful card. I don't think this card is gonna get banned. I don't even think it should be banned. But I do think that this card's ease of access and just how accessible it is, as well as the fact that like Saronir could just send an additional copy, so like even just DD crowing or using a bestial on a Lubellion in grave isn't even like, you know, the end all be all. Who the fuck thought a card that says search a dragon monster was okay? That's what I'm saying, dog. I think that Konami will want to keep these engines within the game, and I think that like Lubellion has enough generic splashability and stuff like branded Despia and being able to set up like rebranded lines, branded B. Oh, fucking Resonant Sleeper, bro. We get it, bro. You have a fucking 80-20 Labyrinth matchup. Like, we get it. I think that warrants, you know, these cards being limited but not banned. Speaking of dog shit archetypes, we have Branded. I'm sorry, I cannot take this deck seriously. There is one card I can take seriously, and that's Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. I think that the Albion stuff is probably fine. I think that the Revival stuff is way more fragile now. I think that it's way worse because we don't have Expulsion. I think that if you're playing shit like Raw's Disciple, you are actively trolling and you deserve to lose. But I think that Gimmick Puppet Nightmare is without a doubt the #1 worst offender. I can like understand like Ido the Supreme Force. I can understand like Raw's Disciple. The reason why those cards aren't actually that good is because you could just remove them. You could just like tribute summon a bestial and like you're no longer under the lock, or you could just like crash them into like the Albion. But the thing about Gimmick Puppet Nightmare is as soon as you summon this fuck, it's fucking Jover. It's a condition that just applies itself as soon as it gets plopped into your board by the Albion. I think that this is like the only branded hit, and I think you could like give branded basically everything else back and it just won't matter. So yeah, fuck Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. Why is this card so good? Like goddamn. Next up is Labyrinth. The amount of times I've seen this art on playmats, insane, bro. People want those fucking milkers. I think that Eradicator, although it's technically not a Labyrinth card, this shit's gonna get banned. You cannot convince me in 1,000 years that Konami isn't gonna ban this card. I don't think this card should be banned personally. I think that this card is like perfectly fine. It's not even that good. It's only good versus like 3 of the top decks, and one of them is fucking Runick Spright, so that deck is arguably not even real. But the thing about Eradicator is that although it does have matchups where it's not that good in, where it's only hitting like maybe 1 or 2 cards at best, there are enough matchups where it can just blow your opponent out and hit for like 4, 5, 6, force your opponent to activate like every single Purrely card, force your opponent to activate a shit ton of like Runick stuff. It just puts your opponent to like a super bad spot if this card is good. And the fact that this card is searchable off of the Lady Lab makes it so that I can see Konami banning this, as well as the fact that it's fucking playable in Kashtira. Like you could tribute a Rise Heart. Who designed this shit, bro? Isn't it only good right now because we're in a super spell heavy meta? Yes, but even if we do transition to like a less spell heavy format, just the fact that it's searchable means that Labyrinth is always going to have some sort of staying power, especially when we transition back into formats that may be more spell heavy relative to other formats. Like obviously if like we enter a period after like the Kashtira format where it's like nothing but like monster mash and like trap cards or whatever, like Labyrinth is obviously going to see, you know, a big sliding scale just because of like Eradicator, and Eradicator is going to be cut from like deck lists. But as soon as like we re-enter that era, you know, Eradicator being at 3, like ooh look, there's an Arise Heart, ooh look, there's a Lady Lab. I think that's the sort of stuff that Konami's going to try to avoid with, you know, super duper blowouty cards like this that say either fucking do nothing or just win the game. Also, you can search this off a Thrust. Yeah, that's pretty fucking insane. Why can you search this? Why does Thrust exist? That's a card that should be banned. And next up we got Rika. Rika's a pretty weird archetype because there are so many like small pieces that need to be hit in order for this deck to kind of get axed. It's kind of like Thunder Guard Dragon from Toss format, where there were so many different cards that just needed to be hit for that deck to sort of be hard neutered. In Rika, like there are certain cards that like if you ban, the deck just completely falls apart, and certain cards that if you ban just do nothing. Like if you ban Mudon, they're just like, all right, sure, I'm gonna play my 15 other Rika cards. But if you ban like Lokai, like what are you gonna do? This might be a little insane, but I think I found the perfect Rika Sun Avalon hit. I think it's Aromatherapy Jasmine. Hear me out, chat. I think that the plant engine is too consistent with Jasmine. I think that Jasmine offering a double search and a special from deck is just too good. I think that this card is so broken. it's broken. You can just look at this shit. How is this not like the most insane card in the deck? I think that this is a card that's not essential to the deck, but I think really just gives it a huge crutch. I think that Jasmine offers way too much insulation. I think that Jasmine is just way too goofy. What if we hit die? Shut up. That just kills the deck? No, it doesn't. Do you know why? Because you could just hard draw your shit. Oh no, I'm not gonna be able to fucking search Mudan. You have Rika Sheet. You have Lone Fire Blossom. You have like archetypal cards. Like, what are you saying? Oh, I can't special 10 trillion cards. Suck my fucking. Next up is Purrely. I know Purrely didn't really need a hit last time. I think that hitting Plump was a bit too early. But if there's one Purrely card that I think also needs to go to 1, it's Sleepy Memory. Sleepy Memory is so disgusting when your opponent does not even just like the triple, not even the draw 6 combo. The draw 4 combo in itself is like an FTK. If you are running like 6 or 9 hand traps in your deck and you draw 4 cards, you're almost guaranteed to draw a hand trap, and there's like a 40 to 50% chance that you draw 2. And if you manage to draw 6, it's over, bro. But yeah, I think Sleepy Memory got to go. And finally, we're gonna talk about the generic stuff. This is stuff that I think doesn't really fall into a specific archetype, but we can talk about overall. Shout out to Jerry Beans, man. Why does he look so fucked up, bro? I think to 1, Harpor. I think that our orchestrated erasure is nothing to fear. I think we can bring Harpor back. We already have it. It's called Nightmare into World Wand. I think that Harpor is 100% fine to come back. I think that Orcust fucking sucks by modern standards. Like, are you really scared of a quick effect send, a 10 card main deck engine with like 50 bricks? I think that Harpor definitely is completely fun to come back. And while we're at it, putting me out at 3? No, okay, not that. And I think the cards that are gonna come back, we're getting Gazelle back. How are you not expecting Gazelle to 3? If you have a betting pool at your locals for cards that are coming back, put $1 trillion on Gazelle. You guys saw Soul Burner. Herald of Orange Light. You trying to tell me that Drytron's a real deck? That shit sucks bricks. Have you seen a Bestial? Miscellaneousaurus. We had Wild Survivors. I'm pretty surprised that this didn't get unlimited sooner. What does Dinosaur do? Ooh, summon UCT. Ooh, summon the Dolga. Summon Lars. And we're gonna get Pot of Desires back. And Engage is a little greedy. I think that Engage is probably gonna stay at 2. But I mean, Sky Striker is just not a real deck. I think that like Striker, although it's a pretty cool deck, I think that is just way too rogue. It just doesn't do enough right now. Like, you cannot afford to be playing like a blind second strategy in the current format, unless like that blind second strategy is like Kashtira, but I am playing Lightning Storm and enemy controller. Ooh, look at me, I'm so special. Like, I think that playing a deck that's like purely dedicated to like going second and sets up an extremely weak turn 1 as a result, which is like maybe like at best like 2 Widowmakers, is just not enough. So if you want a general breakdown for what I think is going to happen, here it is. And that's it. Remember, kids, hit the subscribe button. Give me money. I'm trying to be a trillionaire. 30,000 subs by the end of the year, maybe? Anyways, that's been Smarter with Stevie. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.